Pickpockets and petty crimes are on the rise at cruise ports and cruise destinations around the world. And if you become a victim, you'll not only lose money, but you could lose your cell phone and your passport. So I'm going to show you exactly how these people target cruisers, the mistakes most cruisers make at ports of call, and some simple steps that smart cruisers take in order to protect their passport and their wallet. And make sure you watch until the end, because I'm going to share with you a free tool that you can use to protect yourself if you ever do happen to fall victim to one of these crimes. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you fresh cruise advice, money-saving hacks, and secret strategies the cruise lines don't advertise. Let's get started. Let's start with the moment you step off that ship. When you're on that cruise ship, you're in a relative bubble of safety. There's not a whole lot to worry about on that ship. But the minute you step off, it's hard to switch that mindset off. But you're walking into a completely foreign environment, in many cases countries that you've never been in before. And people could be watching what you're doing. Everybody's getting off excited, bags open, cameras out. And locals who don't have the best intentions are noticing this and figuring out who they can target and who would be the easiest to get something out of. The moment I step off a cruise ship, I try to switch my mindset into caution mode. If you're traveling to a Caribbean port, where you want to really be careful is crowded spots. These will be spots where people congregate to take pictures. You always see these photo op signs or these picture frame signs near the ship where people are trying to get all these selfies and pictures with groups. A lot of times people put their bags down, people leave things unattended, they're not paying attention because they're focused on what they're doing, and that's a prime spot for a pickpocket or a petty thief to come by and grab something. Also in crowded shops or stores. And be wary around any street performers. Sometimes these petty criminals use these street performers as a decoy. People congregate around them, are paying attention to them and not to what's going on. And sometimes it's crowded in there, so you don't seem to notice if somebody bumps into you slightly. If you're cruising in Europe, you also want to watch crowded areas at port, specifically markets where they tend to be very busy, and also at public transportation spots and train stations. These are big spots where petty thieves target tourists. When I go to a cruise port, I always tend to stay away from the distractions. So if somebody's screaming, if somebody is crying, if something's going on, some kind of commotion, I steer clear of that because that's a prime spot where a pickpocket will come up and take advantage of you focusing on some other thing. And sometimes they will set up these distractions for you. Sometimes the distraction will be something as simple as a person pretending to be nice or helpful, but having other intentions. And then they'll use a bump technique. So if you're in a crowded space, make sure you have nothing exposed, because in a crowded space, they love to bump into you because everybody's bumping into you, so it seems quite normal. But when you're being bumped into, you don't notice if somebody has a slick hand and pulls something out of your pocket. And they'll use group tactics. One person to distract you, the other person to take your stuff and run away. So where does that leave us? What can we do as cruisers to protect ourselves? Well, next I'm going to give you a few smart cruiser pointers. And then I'm going to share with you that free tool that you can use that saved a friend of mine after being a victim of a pickpocket. One thing that I always do anytime I'm stepping off that ship is wear my backpack. And I bring a backpack for a specific reason. It's tied to my person. And even if I sit down somewhere, I strap it across the chair before I sit down. So it's always locked onto something that's very hard to grab. It's not one of these tote bags that somebody can just come by and run away with. And then I use the pockets strategically. So the backpack I use has an interior pocket on the back, that's where I zip up all of my valuables. So I might have $20, $40 in my pocket. But if I'm bringing any more than that, it's going in that pocket in the backpack, as well as my passport and any other documents that I have to carry with me. That way they're secure and I know nobody's getting access to that. One thing that is being stolen more these days are cell phones. So be careful, because a lot of people keep those in more exposed pockets and they're easier to pickpocket. And then sometimes people actually hand their cell phones over to a stranger to take their picture. While this should seem like a safe thing to do, it's really not if you don't know the people and they're not fellow cruisers. Now, the great thing about being on a cruise is I've never had a problem or even heard of an instance where a cruiser did something like this. So if I'm at a spot where I want a picture taken, maybe with the cruise ship in back, I will wait a minute till I find another person who just got off that ship and ask them to take it for me, rather than using a local that I don't know, because while their intentions could be good, it could also be part of a bigger scam. And if you sit down somewhere to take a break, have a drink, get something to eat, make sure that when you get back up and you're walking back through the port, especially through crowded areas or through shops where there's a lot of people in there, that everything is zipped up and closed. I see way too many cruisers walk through these shops with their bags open, and that's an easy target. And one thing you want to avoid is frequently pulling out a wad of cash. If you're bringing a bunch of cash with you, just put a bill or two in your front pocket and put the rest in a zipper in your backpack, under your belt, somewhere hidden. And try not to keep pulling out that wad every time you go to buy something. Use the bills in your front pocket. That way it's less flashy and you're not going to be noticed. And you'd want to do the same thing if you're using a wallet. You don't want to be checking out and opening up and checking that wallet all the time. It kind of indicates that there must be something in there that's worth taking. Now, next I'm going to share with you this free tool that you can use right now, which will protect you in the event that you do fall victim. But first, I would ask if you could take a moment and subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button. It helps us grow and will continue to bring you our cruising updates. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine at a Caribbean cruise port asked a local there to take his picture with the ship in the background. He put down his backpack, handed the guy his phone, and stepped back to get into the shot. And the guy took the phone, grabbed the backpack, and bolted. And my friend was left with nothing. He had his ship cards, his passport, his wallet in that backpack. He had a backup copy of his passport on that phone. And this creates quite the dilemma, because it is much more difficult to have a passport replaced if you don't have a copy of it. And that's why I always keep a digital copy of my passport, my IDs, my credit cards, even my financial documents on the Generational Vault. And this is a free tool that you can use thanks to the National Foundation for Financial Education. This nonprofit organization has made this available to us for absolutely free to protect our financial health. And if you happen to be a victim and your passport gets stolen, your wallet gets stolen, you can get immediate access anywhere there is a computer to a copy of your passport, a copy of your IDs, even the credit cards and the phone numbers to call to turn those off and have them replaced, or get money wired to you from your account if you need it. Now, I'm going to bring on the executive director of this nonprofit to explain a little bit more to you how it works. All right, so I have Chris O'Connor on here, the executive director of the National Foundation for Financial Education, and he's going to tell us all about how this generational vault works. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm still vertical, and that's a good thing.
Good to hear. So what can a cruiser take out of this generational vault? What can it do to help somebody who's going on a cruise or does a number of cruises a year and wants to protect themselves in case something does happen?
Right, and this is kind of ironic because, as you know, we've cruised before, and I met Gary playing in a band. Obviously, I play the bass guitar, and I'm pretty good at that. But Gary said, your singing could make an onion cry, so I just stick to the bass. Anyway, I digress, and I apologize for that. But you got to have a little bit of fun, and that's what cruising's about, is having fun. And so, ironically, I was going to Florence, which is I don't know if you can see my shirt, but which I bought in December, And 2 months before that, my cousin Dan went to Florence, and he had a really bad experience. He took a cruise, and they took the train to Florence. And when he was returning, he couldn't get his credit card to work to buy the train ticket. And so this lady, Italian lady, helped him and said, "You use a debit card. It makes more sense and it's easier." And so he did. And unbeknownst to him, she watched him punch in his PIN number in there. And he bought the ticket and got on the train. And unfortunately, she was on the same train, but 3 people bumped into him, knocked him over, and took his wallet, stole his cell phone and his wife's purse. And it was a real mess. And this was right before one of the stops, and they got off. And before Dan knew it, all of his stuff was gone, his passport, etc., because both of their passports were in his wife's purse. And so when they got back to the cruise ship, what do? Oh my goodness. So they also, once they got on the cruise ship, and it was hard to get on the cruise ship because all of their credentials were gone. So it was a real mess just getting back on the cruise ship. Well, not to mention that when they got done with the cruise, they didn't know what to do because their passports were gone. So that lesson really told me that it's a good thing to make sure that you have the ability to have access to all of your documents, including all your credit cards, everything that you need, especially your passport, because they actually had to backtrack, go down to Rome to the American consulate and get temporary passports so they could get home. And it was a real mess. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's no problem. I'll just take a picture of my passport. Well, if it's on your phone, that's great. But when they steal your phone, that doesn't do you any good. So the generational vault is a highly encrypted online portal that you can store all of your documents. And it really can make a huge difference.
And you say financial documents too, which makes sense, right? Because if you lose your credit cards, how do you know who to call to report that kind of thing, right? And if you have that information saved that you can go to a computer anywhere and pull that down, it makes the recovery process a lot smoother, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about storing these, highly sensitive things on the internet. How is it safe to do that?
Well, there's a big difference between your typical cloud versus the generational vault, because the generational vault is actually a 2048-bit encrypted site, which is the same encryption depth of encryption that you use when you do online banking. And to your point, Gary, I actually had some people that were in Amsterdam on a cruise. They went for lunch one day, walking back to their cruise ship, and they got mugged. And so, again, same thing. All of the stuff is gone, passports, cell phones, everything. He ends up in the hospital because he got pushed down, cut his head open, and had a concussion. So he had to spend the overnight in the hospital, and they didn't have anything. Whenever we're traveling, I make sure that we have our powers of attorney in our generational vault too, because what's the worst case? Let's say we both get hurt, unconscious. Who's going to act on our behalf for our health care, and also who's going to pay the bills? So because the National Foundation for Financial Education is a 501c charitable nonprofit, we will actually give you the generational vault free of charge. And we also give you free financial and healthcare powers of attorney, because it's amazing to me that so many people don't have it.
And then what about access? Like, how do I give access to a child or a grandchild in case something happens, but maybe I don't want them to necessarily have access right now?
Right. So what you can do is you can turn on and off access. So that's exactly what I do. If I'm going out of the country, and that's what we did in December, and we also went on a Virgin cruise in January for 11 days. I turn that access on for my daughter, and she's 39 and very responsible. I would not turn that access on to my younger daughter because she's sweetheart, but she's not as responsible. So, you can pick and choose, and you can turn it on and off to allow access anytime you want.
And as far as the kind of documents you would want to put there, so we talked about the passport, powers of attorney, if you have them. Is there anything I'm missing, anything else you would store on there or that you should have on there?
Yeah, and no one likes to think about the worst case scenario, but if you've been on a cruise and you've been doing it for a long time, I think I took my first cruise in the early 90s, or maybe that was in the 80s. But I learned that there's actually a morgue on cruise ships. And so part of what I do is I make sure that I have travel insurance and medical evacuation insurance. So if something happens, because think about this, if you're on a cruise ship and you have a bad medical condition that they have to get a helicopter to fly you off of the ship to get the care you need, or they have to transport your body back, that's expensive. A helicopter ride is $50,000 to $100,000. So, pay attention to that stuff because, life is uncertain. Eat dessert first and get yourself protected. So that is one thing I would put in my generational vault. We have a membership card to a medical transportation. We buy the travel insurance through you because it's a great value. I just want to be protected. So the other things that I would put in the generational vault, your trust or your will. If you have a will, you really probably should have a trust if you have any assets over, let's say, $100,000, because probate is extremely expensive. And the nice thing too is that I got one of these little gizmos, this GoPro that I bought from your link that you recommended. I love it. I absolutely love it because if I'm snorkeling, I've taken a bunch of underwater pictures with it. I bought a housing because I scuba dive, and that was like $20. And I can take all my videos, all my pictures, and put them in the generational vault. And what's nice about it is that not only can I access them, but I've actually made a video for my kids to say, hey, if you're watching this, I'm gone. And these are the things I learned in life to pass on and really kind of do a multiple generational thing. Because think about this. Wouldn't it be great to have video of your great grandparents and what their life was like and things like that? And technology today makes that available. So kind of cool stuff.
Yeah, that's a great idea because everybody stores these things on their phone these days, but what happens, you pass away, what happens to that phone? A lot of times those pictures can get lost, erased, and this is a great way to save those memories for generations to come.
Yeah, and my grandparents traveled a lot, and my grandfather and grandmother, they went to China in like the 40s, and it would have been great and granted, there wasn't the technology back then, but there is today. So you can take those once in a lifetime memories and perpetuate them forever, basically.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for making this generational vault available for free to use. It's really free. We have a link in our description that you can click on and just sign up for an account. No strings attached, completely free, right?
Yep.
And you mentioned a couple other things financially that people might want to consider, especially if they do a lot of traveling. If anybody has any questions related to that, other financial questions related to estate planning or those kind of documents, do you have like a website we can link in here where they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's nfFE.org. It's the National Foundation for Financial Education. So it's NFFE.org. And that's our website. And we're dedicated to helping improve people's quality of life by teaching them proper financial literacy. And that's really our goal.
All right. And that link will be in our description as well. Thank you very much for coming on today, Chris. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Gary.
Now, if you're thinking of booking a cruise, we have an up-to-date list of the best cruise deals you can book right now. If you'd like a copy, just comment deals or click on the deals link in the description of this video. And now that you know how to protect yourself from rising petty crimes at cruise destinations, there are a lot of scams out there that catch cruisers off guard. I'll tell you how to avoid those right here.